Hey, all of you, good evening to one and all who've joined in on this session. My name is Arvind, and I will be here conducting this webinar here today on GMAT Quant. Um, just to let you know that we've just started, so you can start, joining in as soon as you can, so that we can start off at the earliest. Um, as you all are aware, this session is on GMAT Quant. It's titled aptly, I need serious help with GMAT math. So where do I start? So a lot of you here on this session are probably starting off with your preparation for the GMAT and of course for your preparation on GMAT Quant. If that is the case, I think this webinar here, this live session is going to help you immensely. It will probably answer some of the common questions that you may have when it comes to starting off. Because it's typically when you start off with your preparation that you have a lot of doubts clouding your mind. You have so much information available on the internet that sometimes it becomes overwhelming and could leave you confused. Therefore, this session could just be the session that you wanted to kind of have some sort of clarity before you start off with your preparation on GMAT Quant, right? The agenda for this session will be about 1 hour's worth of content, and which includes a 15-minute Q&A session. Typically, my sessions extend a little beyond 1 hour, but I think today I'll try to keep it to an hour, give or take 10 minutes. All right. Since this is not a specific topic, I don't think I'll be covering a lot of concepts and strategies, but we'll be looking at answering questions in some ways, answering the commonly frequently asked questions. So that is what I'll cover on the session, and of course, towards the end, I'll have a Q&A segment where you can go ahead and shoot any question that you have on your mind when it comes to GMAT Quant. A quick peek into who we are. We started off in 2006, so right from 2006 for the last 14 years, we have tutored, coached about 5,000 plus students, both for GMAT, GRE. We've also helped people with their applications, and we have clocked about 1 million coaching hours by now. And our students come, from across the world, almost 40 countries. We have our students, taking up our courses, and you can see the list of the top B schools that some of our students have gotten into. So that's who we are. And this is a quick brief about me. I'm a mechanical engineer by qualification, and I've dabbled in many fields, but teaching is something that's been like a constant for me for the last 14 years. I've taught different, I've taught for different tests, including CAT, GMAT, GRE. I've taken some of the tests myself. I've taken CAT, I've taken the GRE. On the GRE, I've had a perfect score. On the CAT, I've had a 97 percentile, 96 percentile multiple times. Yeah, that's something about me. And before we start off with the session, clearly there are some free resources that we would like you to have a look at. These are resources that you don't have to pay anything for. By virtue of the fact that you are attending this webinar, we would like to give out some freebies just to help you kickstart your preparation for the GMAT. So one of them is our very, very well structured and detailed Quant Basics course. This course is very relevant to all of you, considering the context in which this webinar is happening. So this will be very helpful for you. Please go ahead and enroll in this course for free, and be benefited by going through this course. The second free resource that we have is you can use this link to join one of our live at home sessions. This is something that we started off in more very recently in March, after the COVID-19 lockdown happened. So you get to attend one of your free sessions here and get to experience how we conduct the live at home sessions and how we cover the content and what kind of questions we take up in the sessions. So here's your ticket to one of the free sessions. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's of course free of cost. You have tons of great videos shot by Arun himself and some of my other colleagues on Verbal and Quant. You also get access to some of these free resources like ebooks and webinars and some Kickstarter videos. You also get access to the blogs. So what I'll do is, towards the end of the session, I'll copy paste all these links in the chat window. I will not delay the inevitable any further. So without any further ado, we'll get started with what we have planned for today. And as we know, this is a session where all of you are wondering how to start off with the GMAT Quant section. I was feeling a little strange to call it GMAT Math because I believe it's not GMAT Math. I would like to call it GMAT Quant. So, considering the context of the webinar, I think I thought it made sense for me to put this kind of a statistic as the first slide, because if you're really worried about your quant score, and if you're really worried about how you can pick your quant score up, I am guessing, or I'm guesstimating that you're probably in this score segment, you're probably in the 35 to 40 range. So you're probably in this range, which means you are just below average score. The average score on GMAT Quant at this point in time is about 38.91, about 39. So you're just below average, or you're just about above average, which is not really a good place to be, especially if you are planning to score high on the GMAT, right? And therefore, I think your worries are quite justified. I'm sure a lot of you here are here because of the fact that your GMAT scores, at least your scores on the diagnostic test came out on the lower spectrum. So therefore, the first thing I would like to say is there is no need to worry, especially if you have given yourself enough time to prepare for the GMAT. It's a good thing that you've done for yourself, and there is absolutely no reason to worry. Some of the points that we'll discuss today will kind of clear things up and give you a clear roadmap of what you need to do to probably progress from this range to maybe this range. This is probably where you're targeting to get. So this is your target. This should be a target ideally, because in our opinion, right, we have also conducted a webinar on how to score 51 on quant in the GMAT, and we see a lot of people can do that, and 50 is definitely much more than doable. So this is a good target range to have. So how to graduate from this level to this level is something that we're going to discuss today. At this point in time, I just want to know if any of you are facing any difficulty or any challenges in terms of seeing my screen, or being not able to hear me, just post them in the chat window. I just assume that everything is fine as of now. So with that, let's go ahead, people. And as I said, I believe that I would like to call it GMAT Quant and not GMAT Math. A lot of you, when you start off with your preparation, will tend to believe that doing well on GMAT Quant is all about being good at math. That's not the case. Now, GMAT Quant is entirely a different ball game altogether, and therefore, I want all of you to stop thinking of mathematics at this point in time, right? When you think of GMAT Quant, try not to equate it with the mathematics that you have either come to dislike or hate or fear, right? Don't equate it to math because the GMAT calls its quant section as quantitative reasoning. It doesn't call it as quantitative ability. It calls it QR. Now, is that a clue? I think it is. I think it is. Just by the nomenclature, I think GMAT tells you that math skills alone will probably not take you across the line. You'll have to build your logical skills, your analytical reasoning skills, and probably use a lot of common sense when you're solving quant questions. So that's what I meant. The GMAT quant section is a great mixture. It's a great amalgam of math and reasoning based questions. So if you go in to the test center thinking, okay, I've kind of aced math, I know everything in math, you might be in for a surprise. So the section typically has about 16 questions of problem solving and 15 questions of data sufficiency. I'm sure a lot of you know this. Sometimes it could also be 17 and 14. That could also be possible. Having said that, I think 16 and 15 is like the more frequently occurring split of questions. And this should tell you that it's a good mixture of math and reasoning. That's because the problem solving questions primarily test your math skills, whereas the data sufficiency questions test your reasoning skills. Along with your knowledge of math, of course, you need to know math, but you'll have to put on your reasoning hat a lot of times to solve data sufficiency questions, right? So, all in all, don't look at GMAT Quant as math alone. I would probably use the term mathematical reasoning, right? So, GMAT Quant is all about mathematical reasoning. So, don't look at it from the math point of view alone. Math is important. I'm not disputing that, but it's probably not the most important. So, how do you get started? How do you say, okay, I'm going to ace the GMAT quant section, come what may? What you think about the problem says what you will do with it. So, if you think of GMAT quant as a monster, it will probably end up being a monster for you. If you think of GMAT quant as a piece of cake, you will probably ace the GMAT quant without blinking an eyelid. But if you are somewhere in the middle, you're like, okay, I don't know whether I have to hate GMAT quant or I have to fear it. I'm ambivalent. That's okay. The good part is you can still develop a positive mindset. So if you want to do well on GMAT quant, the first thing that you have to change about yourself is probably your mindset. It's probably the way you think of GMAT quant, the way you perceive GMAT quant, right? That has to change. You can't start off with a negative mindset. You will have to start off with a positive mindset and tell yourself that given time, I can learn GMAT quant. I can learn how to do well on GMAT quant. You can't be judgmental of yourself. I've heard these statements very often, and that's why I put them here. Right? I didn't feel it was like so there was something wrong in putting some of these statements. I've heard these from students. I suck at math. My math is horrible. I did my graduation in a particular stream, let's say, for example, commerce or arts, and therefore I can't solve math problems. You keep telling these things to yourself, your brain will keep hearing that. What you say also goes back into your ears. And this is the wrong way to kind of pick yourself up, right? So stop being judgmental of yourself. At some point of time, remember that math has troubled us all. That's that's how math is. That's the nature of the beast. It's just that it troubled us. It troubled some of us more than it troubled some others. So it is sometimes okay that you're bad at math. Acknowledge that. Acknowledge that and start working towards improvement. That's a positive mindset, right? Remember which stream you picked up after high school. It doesn't define your math skills because what is tested on the GMAT Quant section is high school level math. So it can't be a hard it can't be very, very hard. It's after all something that you learned for 3 years, right? Day in and day out. So with the right kind of guidance and with the right kind of learning, I think you can get back what you learned, right? Uh, a good way of doing that is to not expect yourself to get all the questions right, that too from day one. Don't expect yourself to get 100% accuracy rate starting from day one, right? That's probably not going to happen, especially if you're somebody who has not done math for a long period of time. So be realistic and acknowledge your troubles with quant. When you acknowledge that you're facing troubles with quant, you have kind of killed the first level of negativity there, right? You're saying, hey, I have this problem. When you say I have this problem, you start thinking, okay, how do I tackle this problem, right? Target small and consistent improvements. So, for example, if you are solving 20 questions per day, and on day one you get 10 right, 10 wrong. So, this is day one. Day two, you should probably tell yourself, I'm not going to get anything less than 10 questions right today. You could probably get 11 right. That's still a small improvement. You could get 12 right. That's a very good improvement, right? Just tell yourself that you'll target small improvements. And over time, these small improvements will, keep adding up and they will become larger improvements. And with larger improvements, you will automatically notice that you'll be a much confident person when it comes to GMAT Quant. So it's confidence is the name of the game. If you can develop confidence in quant, you can do anything on GMAT Quant. And last but not the least, self prep may not help all the time. So you might want to pick a course, or you might want to pick a tutor who can help you with the concepts and strategies in the right way, right? That's important as well. So starting off with a positive mindset is the first thing that you'll have to do if you're wondering where to start. Without a positive mindset, you can't go a long distance. So I've just put a table here. These are typically the points that you see on the left side are typically points that I get to hear, especially when people start off with GMAT Quant, and also when their diagnostic test scores are really low. So I know it's very natural. I know this is something that comes up first in your brain, but you'll have to probably make a conscious effort to stop doing this and probably start doing what I've seen, what I've put on the right hand side, right? Always motivate yourself. You're the best person to motivate yourself. If you can't do it, then you can't expect others to keep doing it for a long period of time, right? All right. So after a positive mindset, you say, Arvind, I understand the importance of a positive mindset, but tell me something that is more tangible. I agree with you. So let's look at what it takes to solve problem solving questions with more accuracy. How do you do well in problem solving questions? Let's break up the quant section into two parts now. Doing well on quant involves doing well in problem solving and doing well in data sufficiency. So what do you do to improve your problem solving skills? Um, acknowledge, first of all, that the GMAT Quant section is a little skewed towards problem solving, because you saw that there was 16 problem solving, 15 data sufficiency. That was the split. Typically, 16 PS and 15 DS. Sometimes I said it could be 17 PS and 14 DS as well. So it's probably a 55%, 45% split, and therefore you can't score well on GMAT Quant if you kind of don't do well on problem solving. We need to acknowledge that fact first. So what is it that takes for you to do well on problem solving? Remember, in problem solving, there are 5 answer options, and you have to pick one answer option that is correct. You have to go for the exact answer, right? Therefore, when you're looking at doing well on problem solving, you have to improve your calculation skills and speed, right? That is a no-brainer. Okay, so you'll probably have to remember some basic multiplication tables. That's again a no-brainer. Probably if you can remember your multiplication tables from, let's say, 2 to 15, that will do your calculations a world of good. You should probably remember your squares, maybe from 1 square to 30 square, your cubes from, let's say, 1 cube to 15 cube, right? This will help you really perform faster calculations. Thereby, you don't take a lot of time on calculating. You can devote a lot of time towards analyzing the question and devising a strategy and eliminating options, so that you don't have to worry about your calculations. This also means that if you tackle your calculation skills, it will automatically result in lesser calculation errors, right? Both are kind of related. And yeah, memorizing important numbers like the squares, the cubes. Sometimes I also advise my students, right, to kind of remember the powers of 2, right? I mean, if I ask you what is 2 power 8, you wouldn't want to spend 30 seconds on finding out 2 power 8. You would rather have it in your memory and say 2 power 8 is 5 and 2, right? So powers of 3, maybe powers of 5 and powers of 7, till a relatively acceptable extent. So you could probably remember the powers of 2 till 2 power 10. It's immensely doable. It's not a hard task at all. Here you could probably remember it till 3 power 6, here till 5 power 6, and maybe 7 power 4. This will also end up making you a more confident person when it comes to calculations. I understand that math is not always about calculations, but I've also experienced that when I calculate fast and when I keep getting my answers, rapidly, it has a say on my confidence. I'm a more confident person when I know that my calculations are taken care of, right? It will also help you save time, right? If you are good with calculations, it'll help you save time automatically. Apart from this, you also need to learn the different strategies that are involved in solving a problem solving question. So these 4 points, I think, will help you in the initial phases, especially in getting comfortable with problem solving questions, right? So I would say make peace with numbers, because improving your number skills will automatically have a say in improving your quant skills. All right, so I'll just take up some of your questions, as we go ahead. I'll just get back to the, to completing some of the slides before I take up your questions. So please be a little patient with me on that. Now, just as a way of telling you what I meant, or justifying what I meant in terms of improving your calculations, I want all of you to solve this question, right? Fairly straightforward question on finding the value of the expression. So I'll give you a minute and 30 seconds time for you to attempt this question and give me an answer. If you're not able to solve it and get an answer, please estimate and give me your best answer. That's something you have to learn as well for GMAT Quant. So your 1 minute and 30 seconds starts now. Meanwhile, I'll probably so you have a minute now, 30 seconds up. You have 1 more minute. So acknowledge that the question is asking you the approximate value. So try your best not to go for the exact value all the time, right? So try to bring in your estimation skills and your knowledge of decimals and your knowledge of fractions, simplifying fractions, so that you can solve this within the time allotted. All right, that's the last 15 seconds. I hope by now you're close to your answer. You're probably doing the final level of calculations, hopefully. All right, that's a minute and 30 seconds. I'll just have a look at the chat box and see how many of you have kind of got this right. A lot of you say 2.75. D for delta is the answer that a lot of you are giving. So I've not intentionally put a really hard question to start off with, because that, it's not necessary that questions on calculation should be really hard. But I think this was a good question for us to kind of highlight the importance of knowing certain tricks and shortcuts to kind of simplify our calculations. It also ties in with our discussion that we need to know some important numbers, right? For example, 0.333, I would kind of estimate to be 1 by 3, because I know 0.3 bar, right? This is a recurring decimal. The fact that the question asks us an approximate value lets us estimate this to be 0.3 bar, so 1 by 3. Similarly, I would take 0.1666 as 2 by 3. I would take 0.125 as 1 by 8. That's clearly 1 by 8. There's no doubt about it. Now 0.444 is like 44.4%. If you remember your percentages, so this will be 4 by 11. So this is what I mean. If you remember some important numbers like important percentage fraction conversions, then problems like these can just become very easy for you to attempt. Now, the only numbers that are a little harder here are 0.3666, because this is a mixed recurring decimal. So 0.3666, you could write it as 0.36 bar. How do you convert this to a fraction? There's a very simple technique for that. You take 36, which is the significant digits of the number, and subtract the part that is not recurring. So the 3 is not recurring, so that would be 33. So 33 would be our numerator. And there is one digit that is recurring, so that would be a 9. And there is one digit that is not recurring, so that would be a 0. So the digits, the number of digits that recur after the decimal point will represent the 9s, and the number of digits that don't recur will represent the 0s. We can simplify this. This will be 11 by 30. So point to note here is there is 11 in the numerator, there's 11 in the denominator. So let's hope that they will eventually get cancelled, one of them. We have a point 8333, which is 0.83 bar. We'll follow the same approach again. 8, 3 are the significant digits. We subtract 8 from this because 8 is not recurring. So we get 75. So this gives us 75 by 90, which gives us 5 by 6. So now that we know all the values, let us substitute. The first value is 11 by 30 multiplied by 5 by 6 multiplied by 1 by 3 whole divided by 4 by 11 multiplied by 2 by 3 and 1 by 8. Now we know that we can take the reciprocal. We could write this as 11 by 30 into 5 by 6 into 1 by 3. We could take the reciprocals of these fractions. So 11 by 4 into 3 by 2 into 8 by 1. So 4 2s are 8, cancels out. 3 goes. So I think this will be 5 6 are 30. So this comes out to be, I think, 121 by 36, which is approximately about 2.75 times. So the answer here is D for delta. So the point I wanted to make here is that if you remember your fractions fraction percentage conversion, decimal percentage conversion, you'll be able to solve these questions much faster and give you a sense of confidence in trying to get to the right answer. Okay, so the correct answer here is like D for delta. All right. So with this, let's move to the next point. How do we tackle another important aspect? So we were talking about numbers. Numbers primarily constitute arithmetic, and arithmetic is a big chunk of problem solving questions. How do we tackle the next section, algebra and geometry? And why is algebra geometry important? Algebra geometry is important because when taken together, they constitute almost like 1/3 of the entire quant section, right? That's almost like 10, 11 questions coming from algebra and geometry. That's a big chunk. And you will have to do well in this section if you want to score high in GMAT Quant. That's unsaid. That goes unsaid, right? Therefore, what are the starting points for you in algebra and geometry? What should you do well on algebra and geometry at the start of your preparation? You need to learn to synthesize algebraic expressions. Okay, so you cannot just say 10x plus 20y is 30y. That's not allowed. You need to learn these basics. You need to know that like variables cannot be unlike variables cannot be added. Like variables can be added. You need to learn how to break down algebraic expressions. That's very important. And for you to be able to do that, you definitely need to know the algebraic identities. So I usually recommend 8 algebraic identities. They're very, very important. One of them is a plus b the whole square, clearly, no doubt. A minus b the whole square. One more, a square minus b square. Very important. I call this the common man of identities because very underrated but very useful. A plus b the whole cube, a minus b the whole cube, probably a cube plus b cube, and a cube minus b cube, and probably a plus b plus c the whole square. If you could memorize these 8 algebraic identities, you'll see that a lot of algebraic expressions that you see on questions will be some form of these identities, and you can use them. So that's one thing that you can do at the start of your preparation in algebra. You also need to learn how to factorize quadratics. So if I give you a question like this, if I give you a simple equation like 3x square minus 7x plus 12 equal to 0, you can't keep wasting time on using the formula. The formula is this, I agree. The formula is there, and you can find out the roots of this equation by using the formula, but it'll just end up taking a lot of time. And it gives scope for you to make mistakes, calculation mistakes. Whereas when you factorize, you're in a much better position, right, to solve the quadratic equation. So please learn how to factorize quadratics. That's a very important element in your algebra preparation. Learn how to solve simultaneous equations, right? Very important. Um, and when it comes to geometry, make sure that you know the basic properties of all geometrical figures, right? I mean, you can't not know that a rhombus has different length of diagonals. You can't not know that the diagonals of a rhombus are perpendicular bisectors of each other. You can't not know the diagonals of a rhombus are angular bisectors of the vertex angles. You need to know some of these basic properties like by memory, right? There's no discount on that. So when you're starting off with algebra and geometry, please do some of these things. Again, doing these things will kind of imbue you with a sense of confidence, right? And you will start tackling the slightly harder questions head on. Okay. Remember that algebra can be fun. I'm saying this because I know conventionally algebra is something that we look at with, a little bit of fear in our head. So algebra can be fun. Just do some of these things that we discussed now, and you would have set the ball rolling with respect to algebra and geometry. So let's try a question on algebra. This is one of my favorite questions. So I'll give you 1 minute, 30 seconds again, 90 seconds to kind of attempt this question. Go ahead, give it your best shot, and tell me what happened. So time starts now. So be very careful in interpreting what is mentioned in quotes. Don't jump the gun, and don't be in a hurry. Also try to use the answer options to your advantage, and just don't take a very traditional approach of developing an equation and trying to solve it. Part of doing well on math is to develop this mindset right from the start of your preparation that I will not try to do math in the same way that I did it in school. Why would you want to do it the second time? You have a chance to start off new. So start off new. Try a different method. Try a different approach. Use smart techniques rather than relying on equations and expressions all the time. Don't become a slave of the traditional method. All right, the last 15 seconds. All right, people, that's a minute and 30 seconds, which I think is like sufficient time for you to kind of get an answer on this question. Let's see how we go about breaking down this sentence and converting it to an algebraic expression or an algebraic equation, right? A boy was asked his age. So the age is the unknown. And remember that an unknown always gives you a chance to develop a variable. Developing a variable is of paramount importance if you want to develop an equation. I mean, a variable is the basic ingredient required to make an equation. So the unknown, let us take as x. our favorite variable, right? If you add the square root of it is obviously the age. So square root of x, if I add this to half of it, that is half of x, and then subtract 12 from the resultant. So from this expression, if I subtract 12, the answer will be nothing, which means the answer will be 0. How old was the boy? So we are essentially trying to find out the value of x. So let's do a little bit of math here. The 2 is the LCM of all the three numbers. So we'll take 2 in the denominator. So this will be 2 root x minus plus x minus 24 equal to 0. I mean, we could now conclude that 2 root x plus x minus 24 equal to 0. Now we could take x minus 24 on the other side, so it becomes 24 minus x equal to 2 root x. And at this point of time, a lot of you would be tempted to solve this equation by squaring both the sides and getting into a quadratic and then solving it, right? This is probably where you need to start using a smart approach. You are trying to find the age of the boy, and you see three numbers which are perfect squares. So why not use them? Why not use them in the place of x? Because all these answer options, right, talk about x. And obviously the first answer option that I'll pick is 16 because I want a value that is less than 24. So clearly 36 and 49 can be kind of ruled out. I think 24 can also be ruled out because 24 minus 24 would give me 0, whereas on the right side I would not have a 0. So only option I think that works is 16. So 24 minus 16 I think is 8. 2 root 16 will also give me 8 because this is 8, this is 2 into 4. So the correct answer here is B for Bravo. So this part, this is where I used my expression synthesizing skills, and this is where I used a smart strategy to eliminate some answer options and maybe plug in a value from the answer from the options to kind of hasten the process of getting the answer. What this will do is it'll give you a sense of feeling smart. You're like, wow, this worked for me. I can do this. And the more such moments you have, the more confidence you'll build when it comes to algebra and geometry. Having talked about problem solving till now, I can't leave data sufficiency alone. So what is it that you have to do to start doing well on data sufficiency? You need a kickstart. I think because data sufficiency questions are unique to the GMAT Quant section, I think GMAT makes it a point to make some of them extremely complicated, extremely hard, right, to think of. And that's because data sufficiency questions are not really math questions. They require you to have a logical bent of mind. They want you to reason out the answer rather than trying to solve it, right? The first thing you need to be clear about are the rules of DS. So the basic rules of DS say that you can't combine statements. You can't combine statement 1 with statement 2 or statement 2 with statement 1 unless you know that both are insufficient. Not a lot of people remember this, especially at the start. DS also wants you to get a unique answer, right? Especially in a value kind of question, you need to give a unique value as the answer. Many people don't remember this. They forget this and keep wondering what happened. In a yes-no kind of question, you need to get a unique yes or a unique no. Many times students try to prove a yes. They forget that no also can be the answer. So be very, very clear about some of these basic rules of data sufficiency, right? You can't violate these rules. Okay, you need to know the rules of the game. Memorize the answer options, please. I find this a problem with students who start off with DS. They are often confused with A and B. They are often confused with C and D. Make it a point to memorize the answer options. Be very, very clear. Take some simple data sufficiency questions, right? Maybe 8 or 10 simple questions, and go about solving them, keeping a piece of paper on which you've written down the answer options, right? Just refer to the paper, keep it handy, so that by the time you solve 10 questions, it would automatically be memorized in your brain, right? Memorize the ADBC technique, memorize the BDAC technique. This is very important for you to save time, especially on the harder questions. And if you can, this is not a mandate. The last point is not a mandate. If you can solve some logical reasoning kind of puzzles, arrangement puzzles, number series puzzles, alphabet series puzzles, right? Which can help you develop some lateral thinking. That is what you need on DS. You need to think laterally. You need to stop thinking in one dimension. You need to stop having tunnel vision, right? So if you can, maybe maybe for 10-15 minutes in a day, pick up a couple of logical reasoning puzzles and solve them, right? The more you do, maybe for the first 7 to 10 days, if you do this, you would have automatically developed some sort of lateral thinking skills. And from then on, the more data sufficiency problems you solve, your lateral thinking skills will automatically improve on their own, right? So with that, I put a very nice data sufficiency question here to kind of test you, to show you how a data sufficiency question like this can sometimes end up being challenging, although it's not very difficult, right? Because it requires you to think from all directions, right? Go ahead and try this, people. I'll again give you 1 minute 30 seconds, starting now. Typically, on a data sufficiency question, you should take less time than problem solving, because in DS, you don't have to find the exact answer. One more rule of DS, which a lot of students flout and end up, you know, taking a lot of time on some questions. And towards the end of the test, they end up feeling, oh my God, why did I do it? I could have saved time. So wherever possible, save time. And DS is one such area where you can save time. It can also be a very high scoring area for you. 45 seconds left, half the time. In fact, if any of you attended my previous webinar last month, this was a question I had taken up in the last webinar as well. So I kind of retained it because I felt this was a very nice question to highlight the important aspects of DS, especially the reasoning aspect, the logical aspect. Last 15 seconds. Five, four, three, two, and that's time. Okay, so if n is a positive integer, so we know n belongs to this set of numbers. These are the positive integers. I'll just write it down here. If n is a positive integer with k digits, remember k represents the number of digits of the number n. And therefore, remember k should also be a positive integer. I mean, you don't have a 0-digit number, right? The smallest number you have is a 1-digit number. So this information is not explicitly given in the problem. This is left to your understanding. This is where your knowledge of math should help you. What is the value of n? So we are trying to find out which of these numbers is n. So the first statement alone says k equal to 1, which means the number of digits in the number n is 1. So that tells us, according to the first statement, we know that n is a single digit number. Now, knowing that n is a single digit number is not sufficient because we have 9 single digit numbers, 1 to 9. Therefore, we don't have a unique value for n. And as I told you, on data sufficiency, you need to have a unique answer. So the first statement alone is insufficient. Therefore, out of the 5 answer options, we can eliminate option A and answer option D for delta. We are left with B, C, and E. Let's test the second statement now. The second statement says n equal to k. What does this mean? This means the number itself is equal to the number of digits. So the number itself is equal to the number of digits in the number. And that's only possible if you take k equal to 1. If you take k equal to 1, you're telling that the number is a 1-digit number and the number is 1. So n equal to k here for sure. But if you take k equal to 2, on the one hand, you're telling that k is a 2-digit number, which means the number should be 10, 11, and so on. But on the other hand, you're telling n equal to k equal to 2, which is not possible. 2 is not a 2-digit number. And the same problem happens with k equal to 3, k equal to 4. So a lot of people miss out on this information, this piece. They don't think about this. This is where they have to think and reason out the problem, right? And they end up thinking because k has multiple values, n will also have multiple values. It's not like that. The only value that satisfies the constraints is n equal to 1 and k equal to 1. So the second statement actually is sufficient to tell us that n equal to 1. And because the second statement is sufficient, we don't have to combine the statements and data is not insufficient. The correct answer is B for Bravo. Very often on this question, the answer that comes out is C for Charlie. That is a trap answer. So summarizing, if you want to do well on DS, if you want to start off well on DS, please memorize the rules of DS. Please memorize the options. Please memorize the strategy of ADBCE. And if you can, solve some logical reasoning puzzles, maybe for the first 1 week, just to develop that sense of lateral thinking. And after that, I think you can stop and you can continue solving DS questions from the OG, right? What do I have to say here? So till now, I think we have discussed what are the basic things you need to do from your end, right, as a student to kind of kickstart your quant preparation. But as you know, all that you do may sometimes also end up leaving you with a feeling that it's not sufficient, right? You might feel, okay, I still need somebody to help me. So that's when you can take up a course. You can take up a course from a reputed player. Preferably take up a course that has a strong emphasis on the basics. Very, very important, because that's why you're here. You're here because you're wondering where to start off, right? You're not clear where to start off because you're probably started off at the lower end of the score spectrum. Also look at a course which gives you a lot of strategies and which has a clear study plan and it gives you official resources, right? And clearly, the reason why I put this here is to tell you that the Crack Verbals course takes care of all these parameters. So if you want to learn concepts and strategies and have somebody to guide you, understand that the official guide and the quant review, right, will not suffice because they don't cover concepts or strategies. That's not done on the official guide and the quant review. They are just a storehouse of official questions, right? And they just introduce you to certain important points that you need to know, with respect to GMAT Quant. That's all they do. They don't teach you concepts and strategies, right? And because of that, you can probably take up a GMAT preparation course from a reputed player in the market. As I said, the course should have a strong focus on the basics of quant. Uh, it should cover all the topics tested in the quant section of the GMAT, right? And also remember that you can't prepare for the GMAT by using resources from some other exam, like for example, CAT preparation doesn't necessarily help you with GMAT quant. It should have strategies which will help you solve GMAT type of questions, and it should have sufficient number of solved examples and practice questions. Look at these 4 parameters when you're picking a course. All right. So just as my practice is, after every strategy, I give you a question. This is probably my 4th question. The question that I've picked up from the official guide, a problem solving question. Go ahead and solve this. I'll give you 1 minute 30 seconds starting now, after which we can go about discussing the solution. Be very careful about not using too many values. Plugging in may not be the best strategy in this problem. Try to develop an equation, and probably towards the latter half of the solution you can plug in and try to understand the constraints here. 1 minute left. All right, that's 1 minute up. You have 30 seconds left. So this is neither too difficult a question nor too easy a question. That this is probably a 600 to 700 level question as per the OG. A medium level question that you would encounter maybe after having solved about 4 or 5 questions. And it's important that you get this right if you want your graph to keep going up, right? Remember that doing well on the first, that's time. Doing well on the first 12 to 15 questions is what ensures that you end up getting a high score over and above 49. Okay, if 3 is less than x, less than 100, so I know x lies between 3 and 100, and I know x cannot be 3, x cannot be 100. For how many values of x is x by 3 the square of a prime number? So x by 3 should be equal to the square of a prime number. At this point, a lot of students start plugging in for the value of x. But a better strategy, in my opinion, would be to say x is 3 times the square of a prime number. Why is this a better strategy? Because you know the range for x. When you know the range for x, you're better placed to plug in values here. When you plug in values here, you will know the exact limit where you can stop plugging in values. So for example, if I plug in 4 here, 4 is the square of 2, 2 is a prime number, x is equal to 3 into 4, 12. So 12 is definitely possible. So we got one value. I plug in 9 here, 9 is the square of 3. So x would be 3 into 9, 27, possible. I plug in 25. So x equal to 3 into 25. 25 is the square of 5 and 5 is a prime, 75. By now, I already know that I am approaching the upper limit. So I will have to be careful. What is the next prime number after 5? The next prime number after 5 is 7. If I plug in 7 square here, 7 square is 49. 3 into 49 is 147. 147 is not allowed for x because x has to be less than 100. So how many values of x are there? There are 3 values of x. So the better strategy here was to plug in for this value rather than plugging in for this value. If you start plugging in for this value, you're in trouble because the range is so broad that you'll have to plug in so many values, right? Whereas there is a nice little constraint here. You know that a square of a prime number is very, very unique, right? You don't find it often. So the strategy in such questions is to plug in for values which are rare, not common, right? So the answer on this question is B for Bravo. That is 3 values such that this condition is satisfied. So these are the kind of strategies that you can learn when you take up a course. And these kind of strategies are not given in the official guide or the quant review. The quant review and the official guide at best will give you a very convoluted way of solving the problem. Very often you must have realized that, and that's not what you want to improve your confidence in quant. In fact, it can prove counterproductive for you. So what is the last thing that you can do to kind of start off well? You can probably purchase some of these resources. One of them is, of course, the official guide, and the other one is the quant review. The official guide will help you in your first phase where you're trying to improve your concepts and strategies. You're learning concepts, you're learning strategies, you're learning tricks, shortcuts. This is where the official guide will come in handy because it has almost like 450 questions. And you can go about practicing these 450 questions at your own pace without having to worry about the time limit. Whereas the quant review book will come in handy for additional practice and will also help you in building speed. So this is one more component, this is one more element that you have to take care of if you're wondering how to go about GMAT Quant. Remember that practice makes perfect. It's a cliched statement, but it's true. Remember that knowledge is useless if you don't apply it. So the course that you took up, the strategies that you learned, the shortcuts that you learned, they are useless if you don't apply them. And the only way, the best way for you to learn how to apply is to use the official guide and solve as many questions as you can. And when you do that, please try to maintain a tracker sheet, okay? Just to keep track of your mistakes. That's a very important component. As you finish the official guide, you can go back to the tracker and see what are the kind of mistakes you're doing. Is there a pattern? If there's a pattern, you can go back and review those concepts. So for example, if you're making too many mistakes in inequalities, absolute values, you might want to go back to the course, watch the videos once again, see what is it that you missed on the first instance, and try to correct those mistakes. That's the importance of maintaining a tracker sheet. So once you finish the official guide, you can probably take up the quant review book for additional practice. Maybe you can do timed drills to kind of build up speed. These time drills can also be a great way of creating sectional tests. So you could probably pick up 31 questions, select questions from different areas, from different difficulty levels, and try to simulate what happens on the GMAT Quant section, right? But of course, this part I think comes much later in your preparation. At this point of time, if you want to build confidence, I think you need to do this. This is very important. And of course, the last but not the least, taking sectional tests and the full length mock tests that's again a no-brainer. You'll have to test it out. You'll have to test out how your effort has paid off. Has it really paid off well? Has it helped you improve from, let's say, a 40 to a 48, 49? Or is there some more effort required on your part? So taking sectional tests, they are a good way of starting off with small tests. They'll help you build test-taking skills and strategies. They are also a great tool to improve your sectional scores. After taking a lot of sectional tests, you can slowly graduate towards mock tests. Taking a lot of mock tests on a regular basis will help you build stamina, and they'll also help you test out your strategies for the D-Day, right? Uh, so I think this is your last stage, but this is what you need to do as well to improve on your quant. So it's almost an hour, people, that we started. So I think it's time for me to summarize. Remember that doing well in GMAT Quant is it's not about being a pro at math. It's not about being a math whiz. Yes, you need to be fairly good at your mathematical concepts, the basic concepts, but it's not about knowing advanced math. As I said, it requires a diverse set of skills than math skills alone. You have to have a good set of reasoning skills. You have to have a lot of common sense, and you need to be good at your calculations. As we discussed, starting off with a positive mindset is very, very important. So if you're looking here or there, where do I start? Please start off with a positive mindset. Tell yourself that every time you do math, you will be positive about getting the right answer. Have a structured approach to your preparation. First, focus on building the basics of numbers, algebra, geometry. Then, focus on doing the OG questions. Take up a course, learn the strategies and concepts, solve the OG questions. Have a structure to your preparation. Giving a structure to your preparation can go a long way in building confidence. Yeah, as I said, strengthen your basics and practice a lot of official questions, because only official questions will help you understand the various dynamics of a GMAT Quant question. How the data is given, how the statements are framed, what are the trap answers, how do you avoid the trap answers. Solving official questions will get you acquainted with all these dynamics, and the more you know these dynamics, the better placed you are at a later stage to do well on your mock tests. And please take tests from time to time to kind of benchmark yourself and find out where you stand at that particular point in time. So these are some uh, things I think that can help you start off with GMAT Quant. I will not use the word GMAT Math. So just as a wrap up, I thought I'll put this one question, an official question again, to just tickle all your brains with a slight challenge. So I'll give you all like 2 minutes on this question, considering that this is a little bit of a challenger. Go ahead. You can start now. 2 minutes starting now. Attempt this question and tell me what your answers are. So this question, in a lot of ways, I think summarizes a lot of points I discussed. You need to be good at your calculations. You need to be able to recognize patterns. You need to be able to use your algebraic identities. You need to bring in some of your estimation skills too. So in some way, it kind of covers a lot of things that we discussed in the last 1 hour. That's probably why I put this question here. Closing in on half time. By now, you should have kind of formulated an approach, a strategy to kind of use in the next 1 minute. 1 minute up, half time. Always learn to eliminate at least one or two options, especially in a problem solving question. On a GMAT type of problem solving question, there will always be at least one or two options which are kind of irrelevant. They don't fit into the context. They're just there. They're outliers. Try to eliminate them, and that will make your life simple, because then you'll have to deal with just 3 options or 2 options a lot of times. And if you put yourself in a situation where you have to guess, it's good to guess when you have 2 options. You wouldn't want to be in a situation where that's 2 minutes. You wouldn't want to be in a situation where you have to guess out of the 5 answer options. Bad situation to be in. So if you're not able to break down this number, start with smaller numbers. Okay, 0.9 would be 1 minus 0.1. 0.99 would be 1 minus 0.01, right? So this is like 1 minus 10 power minus 1. This is like 1 minus 10 power minus 2, right? So the number of nines will define the power of 10 here, right? Observe that pattern. Similarly, this one, 0.91 would be 1 minus 0.09, right? So that would be 1 minus 3 into 10, 9 into 10 power minus 2. 0.991 would be 1 minus 0.009. That would be 1 minus 9 into 10 power minus 3. So you see a nice little pattern developing in the numerator, right? So this, count the number of nines now. You have 8 nines, so this would be 1 minus 10 power minus 8 divided by this would be 1 plus 10 power minus 4. Because remember, 0.0001 is 10 power minus 4. I think at this stage, all of you are well placed to understand that 10 power minus 8 seems a very, very improbable answer for this particular question. It seems very simple. It looks very simple. So does answer option E, right? Now here you have 1 minus 9 into 10 power minus 8, because you have 8 digits again, divided by 1 plus 3 into 10 power minus 4. How did I get 3 into 10 power minus 4? Remember, 0.0003 is nothing but 3 times of 0.0001. And we also already said that 0.001 is 10 power minus 4. Now, if you remember, a square minus b square is a plus b into a minus b. Now here, if you look at the numerator, the terms in the numerator are clearly in the form of a square minus b square. So this is 1 square minus of 10 power minus 4 whole square. 10 power minus 4 whole square would be 10 power minus 8 by 1 plus 10 power minus 4. The other term, this term, is 1 square minus 3 into 10 power minus 4 whole square. So that's a square minus b square again. We have 1 plus 3 into 10 power minus 4. Now, using a square minus b square equal to a plus b into a minus b, the numerator can be 1 plus 10 power minus 4 into 1 minus 10 power minus 4 upon 1 plus 10 power minus 4. On the other hand, I'll have 1 plus 3 into 10 power minus 4 into 1 minus 3 into 10 power minus 4 upon 1 plus 3 into 10 power minus 4. What does this help us do? This helps us, cancel off the terms. So we have 1 plus 0.0001 minus of 1 minus 0.0003. The 1 gets cancelled out. Minus of minus is plus, so we'll have this is 1 minus. I'm sorry on this. So you'll have 0.0003 minus 0.0001, which is 0.0002. That is option D for delta. So if you look at this entire problem, first of all, you have to develop a pattern, and that requires you to know your numbers. Second, you had to establish an algebraic expression. Third, you had to use an algebraic identity. Fourth, you have to cancel out the relevant terms and simplify. So if you look at the concept, there's nothing behind this problem except it tests your calculation skills and your basic algebra and your synthesizing skills of expressions. That's what GMAT Quant is all about. This, by the way, is a 700 level question, and it exemplifies a lot of things about a 700 level question. So with that, people, if there are any questions, I would really like to take them up at this point in time. And yeah, I hope some of the questions that we took up, some of the points that we discussed have kind of helped you get an idea of how to start off, what all to do in the first 7 to 10 days, maybe, when you want to start off your preparation on quant. So, IG Troy, there is on the GMAT, there's nothing called an 800 level question. If you look at the official guide, there are only certain categorizations, okay? Sub 600, 600 to 700, and 700 plus level. So we will probably never know what is an 800 level question, okay? Because I think that's proprietary information that GMAT doesn't want to give out, okay? You only know that you are attempting a 700 plus level question. That is all you can know. Yeah, thank you very much, Troy. Yes, OG is like the official guide. I mean, that's the abbreviation that we use generally in the industry. OG is the official guide. QR is like the quant review, and VR is the verbal review. What do you recommend? Get rid of small distractions or traps like missing out or detail in the question. It's very hard to answer that with a single, I can't give a one size fits all answer for that. You need to first acknowledge that that can happen to all of us. We do end up missing out information here and there. It's we are all human that way. But one thing I would recommend is, if you have an answer, I always tell my students to compare the answer with the question stem and see if it matches the question stem, and then mark the answer, so that you don't end up falling for the trap. Okay. Other than that, I would recommend that you, if you have word problems, example, word problems are typically problems where a lot of students find difficulty because there's so much information. I always tell my students that word problems are like RC passages. You need to cut out the chaff. You need to cut out the non-essential details and filter out the essential details. That is how you kind of get rid of the unnecessary detail and focus on the essential ones. Okay, that's one more thing you can do. Hope that answers your question. When I solve questions on the test, they feel tougher than usual, OG or mocks. I mean, that's a given, right, Shrey? I mean, your actual test is supposed to be more difficult than the mocks. Added to that, there is something called exam pressure, right? You can't discount it. Taking a mock, this is a mock, but when taking an exam, it's the actual exam. And you do 2 or 3 questions, you take a longer period than usual, you're in trouble because you're stressed, right? Just learn to put yourself in the exam situation more often so that you can overcome the exam pressure to the maximum extent, right? um, Sandeep, what do you recommend for 50 or 51? Just get your basics right, spend a lot of time solving all the OG questions, right? uh, Take time. Don't expect yourself to jump from 45 to 51 in one shot. For Go get to 51 in stages, right? And cut down on the mistakes. To get a 51 on quant, you need to have two mistakes. Maximum of two can get to a 51. A 50 can be obtained with anywhere between 3 to 6 mistakes. So cutting down on the errors is like key to getting a 50 or 51. So, Troy, I've already answered that question. OG will help you build concepts, apply strategies. But if you need additional resources, you can look at the Quant review book. You can also look at the online, question bank that MBA.com offers. That's one more resource. Okay, and OG ends up being sufficient for a very small number of people. I've seen very few people just being able to get to a 4950 just using the OG, right? It doesn't work for everyone. Nitin took a diagnostic and scored 36. How much time is required for target 49? That's again a question that's hard for me to answer. I would only give you a ballpark figure of about 2 months to 2.5 months of intensive preparation on quant can probably help you improve your 36 to, let's say, a 47, 48. Shubham, you have to understand that 700 plus level questions are nothing but the easier questions with more constraints, with more detail, right? And more traps, right? You should have solved enough sub 600 level questions, 600 to 700 level questions. You should have solved enough of them. You should have gathered a lot of concepts and strategies in your repository. And you should be methodical in solving 700 level questions. There are some strategies which are there for 700 plus level questions. You need to adopt those strategies. Akshata, if you are plateauing at 45, 46, it means that there are some areas where you're faltering. One of them is definitely data sufficiency. You would really have to improve your data sufficiency accuracy. You might also want to look at certain areas like number systems, word problems, okay? Topics like inequalities, absolute values, geometry. These are like 4 core areas in GMAT Quant. You might want to go back, review some of these areas and figure out where you're doing more mistakes and try to strengthen the areas where you're weak. Okay. So Sandeep, if you're getting 15 marks, I think that's already a good indicator, right? Just know that getting a 15 marks sometimes doesn't give you a 50 on the actual test. You might end up getting 49, 48, or you might end up getting 50 on that given day, depending on how many mistakes you make. Shrey, creating exam-like situation at home is very easy. As I said, after you're done with the OG, don't do that with the OG. OG is where you're building concepts, right? It's like the first stage of your preparation. After you're done with the OG, use the quant review book to, let's say, pick up 31 questions from different topics, from different difficulty levels, create a section of 31 questions and attempt them in 62 minutes. Okay? It will simulate exactly what happens on the test. That's how you create an exam-like situation at home. And when you're attempting those 31 questions in 62 minutes, try not to have a 2-minute timer. Okay? GMAT, remember GMAT gives you a composite time of 62 minutes, not a 2-minute per question timer, right? Nitin, I think I answered your question about the 36 to 49. I hope you did hear what I said. All right. Bhavya, a score of 48 indicates that your conceptual strategies are in place, your problem solving strategies are in place. You probably have to look at improving your timing strategies, right? Uh, Strategies like eliminating options and uh, trying to trying not to go for the final answer on a DS question, trying to estimate wherever possible. These are timing strategies, right? You probably need to look at improving your time management on the easier and the medium questions, so that the time that you save there can help you on the difficult questions, right? Um, you're not able to improve your score from 48 to much beyond that, because you're probably uh, falling short on time on the questions towards the end. Okay, in the third and the fourth quarter typically, and that can happen because you have spent unnecessarily high time on the first and the second quarters. That's probably where your timing strategies will help you. Yeah, Shubham, as I covered in my slide, no, I mean the OG doesn't cover strategies and the concepts, right? You will have to take up a GMAT prep course, which will have the necessary strategies and theory that you want. You can also use GMAT Club as a one point solution for you. There are concepts uploaded, there are important formulas uploaded on GMAT Club. You can refer them on GMAT Club. If you want a more uh, personalized solution, you might want to go in for a course that will fit your requirements, right? um, Sandeep, on difficult DS questions, not only on difficult DS questions, on any DS question, try to use the question data. Question data is the most important. Try to go from the question to the statements, not from the statements to the question. Focus on breaking down the question stem. That will really help you in all kind of DS questions, including the difficult ones. Troy, I would only recommend that you stick as far as possible to the official resources, the official guide, the quant review, and the verbal review. Nitin, it is very, very important to have 100% accuracy, a near 100% accuracy in the initial 12 to 15 questions. But if you're not able to do that, you can't afford to spend a lot of time on it. You can also have a 90% to 100% accuracy in the first 15 questions. A lot of times, what happens is students end up overemphasizing on the first 10-15 questions. They end up spending a lot of time, and by the time they hit the halfway mark, they would have figured out that their strategy backfired on them. So having a target of 100% accuracy in mind is good, but you also need to think on your feet. And on a given day, if you're getting very, very difficult questions, you need to decide to lose some battles to win the overall war, I would say. Sahil, if you have exhausted the OG review and the GMAT Club Quant, I would recommend that you please do a review, a revision, or an analysis of what the mistakes that you've made, and try to figure out what are the mistakes that you're making more often, right? And try to plug the gaps. The gaps may be fewer in number because you're already at a 48, 49, but there are gaps which are preventing you from going to a 50, 51. So do a thorough analysis of your mistakes, figure out if there's a pattern, figure out if there are areas where you're making more mistakes than often. Typically, areas where students make more mistakes are number systems, inequalities, absolute values, as I said, word problems, geometry, probability. Figure out if any of these areas are your weak areas still, even at this point in time, and try to plug the gap. And don't look at additional resources. I think you have solved enough questions. Around 450 on the OG, 300 from the review, 750. And I'm sure you've solved enough questions on GMAT Club. I'm not a big believer in numbers. I believe that if 2,000 questions cannot help you, then obviously 5,000 questions cannot help you as well. That's my point of view. So don't look at additional resources all the time. Try to analyze your mistakes and then take a call on what extra you need to do. All right, people. Any other questions that you want me to help you out with? Any other questions that you people have? I just hope that this session has kind of set you on the right path in terms of your in terms of starting off your quant preparation. If any of you are doing that, if some of you have already started off your preparation, I just hope that this has added a lot of value to your preparation that you have started already. And yeah, if there are any other questions that you want me to answer, I would love to answer them. Shubham, as I said, you should never have a one size fits all approach, man. That never works on a standardized test. Because if I give you an answer now, right, I think your blood will be on my hands. Correct? If I now tell you that Shubham, you should aim to finish a PS question in 2 minutes, you will always keep that in mind, and you'll always think it's like sacrosanct. You should decide on the time required per question based on your interpretation, your analysis of that particular question at that time. Having said that, you can't take your own time. So have a ballpark figure of 2 to 3 minutes for a PS question and about 90 seconds to 150 seconds for a DS question. Have a ballpark figure. Thank you, Troy. Thank you very much. Bharat, I didn't get your question on which book to prefer. I think I've already answered that question at least twice. The books that you have to prefer are the official guides or the official books, the official guides and the verbal and the quant review and the verbal review. Sahil, remember that ratio proportion questions on the GMAT always test your knowledge of multiples. If you look at a lot of ratio proportion questions on the GMAT, you'll always have questions like the ratio of men and women, women, children, or the ratio of apples and oranges, or the ratio of pens, pencils, and erasers. Remember that none of these values can be decimals, fractions. So they end up testing your knowledge of multiples. So if I say the ratio of men and women is 7:3, indirectly the problem is telling you that men and women, men are a multiple of 7 and women are a multiple of 3. When you understand this particular element, you will stop depending on variables all the time, because that's the most common thing that I've seen students do. The moment they see a ratio 7:3, they say, okay, it is 7x and 3x. I believe that having the good relationship with numbers will really help you in quant. Depending on variables can sometimes put you in trouble. Okay. Yes. So I will give out the resources. Thank you, Kriti, for bringing this up. Thank you very much. I'll just give out the resources right now. Just made a oops. Right. So this all right. So I just want all of you to copy paste this link. So this is the link for the Quant Basics course. So I hope all of you are able to see this. Please make a note of this bit.ly link, and you can go onto our website and using this link, and you'll be given free access to the Quant Basics course. And this is the link for the free demo session, free live session that you can attend. And yes. So these are the free resources, the other free resources that I talked of, the ebooks, some of the blogs, and the strategy videos. So Ashima, I already covered that. What if we are not so good in quant? What should we do? Please, please stop telling yourself please stop telling yourself that you're not so good in quant. None of us were when we started off in school, right? If you're not good in quant, it gives you a chance to start off new, right? You don't have to do math the way you did in school. You have a chance to start off fresh, learn new strategies, new techniques that can help you. But all that can happen if you have a positive mindset. So start off on a positive note and tell yourself that you will try your best to solve a question in quant, right? And not keep telling yourself that, yeah, this is not my cup of tea. Just focus on building the basics. And I've right through the session I've told you what are the elements that you have to do that will help you build your basics, improve your calculation skills, learn important numbers, try to memorize algebraic identities, do all these things. And I think that will put you in a much better frame of mind to tackle the advanced concepts that will come. Any other questions, people? All right, people, if there are no other questions, then let's call it a day here. Thanks a lot for all of you for all of your patience over the last 1.5 hours. You've been great. You've been a great audience, and thanks a lot for participating in the session by solving the questions and giving out answers for all questions. I enjoyed the session as much as I hope that you guys did. I'll hope to see some of you again on the sessions in the future, in the near future. Good night to all of you. Have a nice week ahead and stay safe. Good night, people.